Welcome everybody to a brand new podcast from the Evil Safety Dudes. This is IBC's podcast where we talk about all things environmental, health, safety, and security. From how not to get sucked into a machine to how to not get killed by an active killer. All things employee health and safety. I got a very special guest host today back on the show, Mr. James Henderson. How are you doing today?
Sir, I am absolutely wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing good, and I've heard like 1,000 people ask you that before, and you always say you're doing well, and I always believe you.
Well, that's because it's true. I mean, anytime you realize that you're alive to complain about it, it's a good day.
But I hear a lot of other people, use that line, and I don't believe them. Like I know they're not doing well, and they're like, I'm doing great, and just like whatever. But I actually believe it with you, yeah. So,
well, and it goes right with our subject, because I said anytime you're alive, it's a great day. I mean, we got first aid, CPR, and AED. Well, I've been brought back twice.
What?
So
are you kidding me? I did not know that. So
yeah.
Wow. So you like flatline gone?
Well, the first time I was 18, I drowned.
Wow.
And then 14 days before my 40th birthday, cardiac arrest.
Wow. I was told, I was looking up the history of CPR, like how it came to be invented, and I saw a history on it that it was invented originally for drowning victims.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
at that time, they didn't know what to do. They would put you on a horse on the belly and let the horse ride around, to get all that water out of you. And then somebody figured out, man, let's just start pumping that water out of you. And, then it's evolved to what it is today. But I thought that was kind of crazy. Man, wow, those some wild incidents there. So definitely a subject matter expert on today. You got me on that one. I've never been brought back. I've been put under and I've been choked out in a jiu-jitsu competition once, but I've never flatlined. So yeah, folks, we are talking about first aid, CPR, AED today, and we're going to cover it from a lot of angles. For those of you who train people in, we're talking about, just what it's like to be a trainer and some tips and tricks, and then for students as well. And we're going to try to cover it from all angles. And before we get into today's topic, though, I wanted to pick your brain, James, because we're both teachers of health and safety, and you're at Barton Community College in Junction City, Kansas. Is that right?
Yes.
And you teach all that, hazardous waste and OSHA, and how many courses do you think you're teaching these days? Estimate.
Oh, see, you would ask me something like that.
Yeah, it's got to be like 50 or something.
I probably got at least of the probably 15 or so of the OSHA courses. Well, all of the OSHA numbered courses,
right?
Plus the outreach for general industry, construction, and disaster site worker.
Wow.
And then on the hazardous materials side, maybe another. Well, there's a lot less courses on the hazardous materials side, so I probably have another 8 to 10 on the hazardous materials side.
Man, actually, I think the first time I met you was in Fort Pierce, Florida. I think, because
Yep.
Because I went to Junction City one time for a C-chest refresher, but I don't think you were there, or at least didn't meet you at the time. But
Go ahead. You actually met me at Fort Pierce, and when you came back for the refresher, yep, I was the one who gave it.
Yeah, but I went to a C-chest refresher before I went to Fort Pierce, way back in the day.
Oh.
Yeah, and I don't think you were there. But
No.
So I think the first time was, in Fort Pierce, and you got elected what I thought was the toughest job out of all the instructors. You had to teach us, I think it was the OSHA 15, or maybe it was an OSHA 10. I can't remember, but it was
There was
part of
a 10. Yeah.
it was a part of a large or long, like 2 week or 1 week course, and you were teaching it to a room full of teachers who teach it. You
Yes.
you were teaching an
Yes.
OSHA 10 to a room full of people who have their 500, 501. They've taught hundreds of 10s and 30s, and now you got to get up and teach us teachers who teach it. And I was thinking, man, this guy drew the short stick on this one, you know.
Well, you know what was nice about it though, Aaron, was that I was able to draw so much from those folks. I mean, some of those guys had been teaching 30 years.
Right.
So,
But what impressed me about that was you just got up and you nailed it. You know, like, yeah, you use a lot of teaching tricks. You, like you were saying, you drew off the experience. You didn't get up there and act like I'm gonna teach you guys something. You're like, we're gonna get through this. We're gonna learn. But your enthusiasm and that's what I want to bring up for some other trainers. And you know, I got you on the spot, and it's okay if you don't know the method to your madness. But what I wanted to ask you was, because I've been in a lot of classes with you lately. I'm talking about 40-hour classes. I'm talking about 8-hour day classes. And every day you come in and you're not burnt out. You come in with enthusiasm, and you come in with the energy to talk for 8 hours, 5 days a week. And, you know, how do you avoid that like instructor burnout where you're just pencil whipping stuff? Because I've never seen you pencil whip anything. And if you are, I can't tell because you're still showing that enthusiasm, you know?
so seriously, I look at the people
Okay.
in the class as like if I were stuck in the class. I mean, if you think about it, these people have so many other things they could be doing, but they are stuck with you for that amount of time.
Okay.
So, what can you do to keep them from suffering while they're there? You know what I'm saying? That I don't want them to feel like it's something negative to be in the classroom.
Right.
I mean, it's so they're the client, and you try to give the client what they want, what they need.
Definitely. So what I heard from you was empathy. You just putting
Yeah,
yourself in their shoes, and you know, you're considering them.
yeah,
Did I word that okay? So,
yep.
I mean, I like that, and I don't know how many instructors are doing that. What if it was me? What if I had to sit there? I would want the guy to be trying. I would want the guy to be entertaining. I would want the guy to actually give me what I need. You know, I would want that too if I was stuck sitting there. And so I think if a lot of trainers put themselves in the student's position, you know, they might give a little more and try a little more.
You're absolutely right.
I was
And with some of the courses we give, especially with the courses we're giving during the pandemic, it makes it even more complicated. People, it got to try to find out what motivates them because they're doing video conferencing,
right.
and it's really hard to keep someone's attention
Yes.
video conferencing.
And I'll apologize right now because I am not a good Zoom student, man. My mind is already running in 4 different places, and you know, when I got an instructor sitting right there in front of me, I have to pay attention. But that Zoom, there's so many tricks to where you could, you know, do other things you need to do. But you do a great job. One of the tricks that I noticed that you do a lot when you're Zoom training is you call names, not in a negative way, like Aaron, pay attention, but you know, you'll create a story, and then you'll put the students' names in it, and it's just a really cool instructor trick of the trade to make them pay attention.
Well, if you notice that they're drifting, and I really hate to be put on the spot, so I'm sure everyone else hates to be put on the spot. And so rather than hit them with a question, put them into the scenario, and then they'll start. You know, ear perk up, and they're, he's talking about,
Yeah, it
what
does.
do I have to say about that?
Yeah, it perks their ears up, makes them pay attention in a way that they weren't like called on. Yeah, I mean it's a really smooth trick. So I'm gonna have to steal that one from you.
Oh,
And,
go right ahead, because
and
I stole it from somebody else.
yeah, well that's how we do it. And I'm a little embarrassed to say that I was the subject of a lot of those scenarios. My name was in a lot of my name was in a lot of those. But it was cool, man, because, yeah, it does. It just brings you right back in, and so cool. So, as far as teaching CPR, first aid, AED, let's dive into that. What brands are you offering? Because there's so many now. National Safety Council has a brand. Red Cross has had one. American Heart has one. There's so many different brands now. Which one are you teaching?
Well, since our EMS program and our nursing program use American Red Cross, the rest of us just jump right in because we get a discount.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm a Red Cross instructor as well. I was an American Heart instructor for a while. And I like the Red Cross, and I just got their brand new DVD in the mail. They just came out with the new curriculum, so I haven't even watched it yet, but I need to before the next class. I've been waiting. I think the last Red Cross DVD I had was, it was a good 6 years old now. So anxious to see how they've modified it. I'm really happy they brought tourniqueting back because I'm a big proponent of tourniquets. One of my passions is tactical medicine. I love military medic stuff, emergency room, paramedic stuff. It's one of my passions. And so when they brought tourniqueting back into the Red Cross, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm turning this into a mini tac med class. It was it was a lot of fun for me. I carry a tourniquet on me all times.
So for the American Heart Association, they actually took it out.
Well, they took it out of the Red Cross too for a while, but then they brought it back, and so it sounds like the American Heart never did.
Yeah, and the other thing that surprised me was the removing the. Remember when we used to do the pressure bandage?
Okay.
And for the American Heart Association, they basically took out the wadding and tying on top of the wound. All of that's gone.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was doing some research on, like, who makes these rules, and I found this ECC, something like that, this, like, emergency scientist group that get together. I guess the American Heart runs it, and they get together every 3 years, and they're the ones who tweak and make changes to civilian first aid, CPR, and AD, and then all the people who offer those courses kind of line up with their curriculum. And some of them, that's a little different, like we just talked about, but, I think it's all basically the same as far as compression to breath ratio and things like that.
Yes, yeah.
So my first course was I needed it to get into the nursing program. So it was about 1993, 1994. I'm dating myself. To some, I'm going to seem old. To some, I'm going to seem young. But I was a little punk teenager, little Southern California skater, and I went to I found a CPR class because they said I needed it. I went and got certified. I went and presented my credentials to the nursing program. They said, no, you got to use American Heart. I was like, what? Because it was American Red Cross. And I'm paying for this myself. So then I went and found an American Heart class. So I took them both back to back. And it was like the same stuff. And it was nice because it was the second time around. I learned more because I had that baseline. But that was my first experience way back in the day. I didn't become an instructor probably until 2007 or something. And been doing it ever since. And I'm really happy with the way that they have it now. Do you remember when there was a different breath to compression ratio for infants, child, and adults?
I remember it well because I took my first class when I was probably 17.
Okay.
And
I won't guess the year. Wow. I won't guess the year. I told the year, but you don't have to tell the year.
Yeah, I was going to tell you. But back then, I mean, the algorithm um, it was as a Boy Scout, and then in the military, it was all in the numbers. It was all in the numbers. We knew exactly how many compressions. We knew exactly how many breaths, and it's 1 and 2 and 3 and
Right,
yeah.
right.
And that was a habit that was hard to break. Trying to get a minimum of 100 compressions per minute and doing that 1 and 2 and 3, it didn't work.
Oh, it was too slow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because by the time you finished your first 30 compressions, it had been about half a minute.
Right. Yeah, I'm just glad the way it is now. I'm going to see the new DVD that just came out. Hopefully they didn't change it, but in the last time that group of emergency medicine scientists met, they made it 30 compressions and 2 breaths for infant, child, and adults. I'm like, okay, I can remember that. It's going to be easier. I remember having to carry cards around because you couldn't remember everything. It was too hard because you only do it every couple years, so it's not like you're always going to have that information on the top. And then it was also confusing because, like, with infants first, you would do the breath before the compressions, but on children or adults, you would do the compressions first. And it's like,
Yes.
this is too
Yes.
much, and now it's compressions first, breaths on everybody. So I hope they didn't change it in this last round of curriculum update.
Not from what I've seen.
Well, that's good.
I remember carrying the smart cards. I carried my little laminated smart cards in order to ensure that I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, and there was a lot of curriculum you had to give the students because it was just so confusing. You want to make sure you gave them all of that stuff so they could remember it. But
well, I've started feeling kind of left out though when everything went to video and we only got a chance to do the performance side.
Yeah. It's supposed to cut the class down, I think, 2.5 hours from 4, and they did take out extra hands-on stuff too, like the triangular bandage and stuff. Like I remember when we used to have to do that and splinting and all that.
So do you end up getting a lot of students who did everything online and they only come to you for the actual performance testing?
No, because I just didn't offer that. I just, you call us up for a CPR class. I say it's 4 hours, and I just offer the in-person one. So I could offer the blended learning. I just didn't want to.
Okay. Well,
you're at college though, so you might be getting those calls, but the people that are calling me, they don't really know that that's out there for them,
I found with the blended that when I get professionals that are going through they're nurses, they're medical related, the folks from the dental clinic, they'll take the online portion, come see me for the performance. Well, they already have experience,
right?
So they're just renewing things. But I'll get folks straight out of high school, or they have some course in college that they have to have, and they have to be able to perform. They have to have CPR for it, and for them, it just seemed like the blended didn't work as well.
Yeah, I've always been kind of being a live trainer. I'm biased, obviously, but I've always been kind of against online training. But what I've realized recently is these new group of kids, though, they've learned online their whole life. Even in school, they're on tablets and computers. And so I've noticed some of the younger kids, it's actually weirder when they get like lectured and hands-on because they're more used to the computer anymore. It's kind of throwing me for a loop.
Well, and with some of the technology that's out there now, in the future, they're probably going to be able to even do the hands-on from their house.
Right. We had Kurt Laughlin on the program earlier this week, and he was talking about some of the COVID changes they made in sending packets of like PPE out to the students. So the instructor's on Zoom and everybody has an air purifying respirator, in their hand. And so he's able to watch them and train them, and they're still able to get hands on, but it's all online now. So
Yeah, we did that last year. We started that last year. I think my first class was Puerto Rico.
wow.
That we tried that with.
And I could see where they could possibly figure out some cheap dummies that you mail and the student has to mail back, and then it could all be online. I could see where that could happen, but let's talk about that for a minute. How did your CPR training go during the height of COVID?
Well, I was actually everything was hands on. We were mask up, plus we had face shields, gloves. Yeah.
How'd you do breaths like that? The rescue breaths.
What's that?
How'd you do the rescue breaths?
So every person had their own mannequin.
Yep. But you'd have to take the face shield and the surgical mask off for rescue breaths, and like when you're doing the
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of issues with that, where people they get into the scenario and they start working on that person. They'll go in and check the scene, check for responsiveness, and then get into the breathing and pulse, and forget to take their face mask off before they start to give the breath.
Yeah, I had some of that too. We were doing it during the COVID protocol. It's slow pandemic. It's slowed down so much, and we, like everybody else, we limited class sizes. We put everybody 6 feet away, so when they did take their mask off, they were still 6 feet away. And I always cleaned them dummies like crazy, but I cleaned them even more, and everybody had their own dummy, and it was a challenge, but people needed it still. I mean, they needed it even more, with the health crisis going on. So, yeah, it was a challenge, but we got through it.
Ours actually went up. Our numbers went up for everything, for the first aid and for the CPR during the pandemic. And so what we ended up doing, I'd have probably 4 people in 30 person classroom. And that way each one could have their own corner, and they had plenty of social distance.
Right. Well, that's cool.
It slowed us down. It slowed us down because I couldn't watch multiple people performing at the same time. It had to be one at a time, except for when it came to the AED, and the one providing the AED was masked up while the other one wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, this pandemic, in a way was cool that it got us out of the box and made us expand what we could and couldn't do. And if I would have told you 2 years ago you're going to be running a class like that, you would have been no way. But it's made us stretch our brains and think about different ways to get stuff done.
Well, the logistics has been a monster.
Right. Yeah.
You were talking about sanitizing the mannequins. So our mannequins, each one carries a tag to show when was the last time it was sanitized or disinfected and who was responsible for it.
Nice.
Used to be we'd have one checklist for the entire. So I carry four mannequins per container, and we'd have a checklist for the container. Well, now each individual has its own decontamination checklist.
What's some of the recurrent questions you get when you're teaching a class from students? Do you ever get the same questions over and over again on this subject?
Well, the main one. So when they do it online, the videos talk about ROSC, right? Return. What is it? Return to return of spontaneous circulation.
Okay.
But nowhere in the videos do they explain what that is.
Yeah.
And the other thing, what you were talking about, what used to be the ABCs
Oh, yeah,
is
yeah.
now, yeah,
CAB, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so people have done it before. Yeah, they're sometimes confused. You know, where's ABC's at? Well, it's CAB now. What? My number one question I get is, I thought we didn't have to breathe anymore. That's the number one question I get. Why are we doing breaths?
So
I thought they took breaths out.
in the first aid classes, yes. But in the so if they take first aid going into CPR, but when I get folks who are here for CPR and AED, they know.
Yeah.
But it was the push. I mean, think about it. Since 2000, yeah, I think it started around 2000 with the compressions only CPR,
Right.
and it's just gotten bigger and big. And I actually think it's a wonderful thing.
Right. I'm excited about the philosophies, and maybe you come across some more literature on this. I haven't yet. I haven't delved deep into the research, but you know, because I'm just still training it how they're telling me to train it. But I heard a really cool philosophy that while you're doing chest compressions and you're pushing blood out of the heart, and you lift up, and then it sucks blood back in, and you push blood out. You know, you're manually pumping the heart. I knew that. I knew what compressions did, but the philosophy was that we're doing the same thing to the lungs. When you push the lungs down, as long as you know they're on a hard flat surface, you push the air out, and when you let up, then air gets sucked in like a billowing effect. And the philosophy, the hope is that billowing effect of the compressions bringing air in and out of the lungs, that may be enough oxygen exchange to get enough oxygen in the blood, you know, to keep the brain alive. But I have not heard that that's been actually like proven yet.
So there's been a couple of there's been a couple of studies, but nothing, like you were saying, nothing conclusive, because so in general, the studies have said that as long as there is chest wall compliance, then the pressing on the chest is going to actually cause a passive ventilation to start. But I saw a study, and I just looked at it this morning because I was kind of hoping we would bring this up. I looked at it this morning where 3 doctors went out and they actually conducted their own study. They only did it on 17 patients.
Okay.
And actually the results made it even more inconclusive, because all of their patients, correction, out of the 17, I believe only five still basically had that chest wall compliance, that they were still, they were still new enough in their after the cardiac arrest, they were still new enough to where their ribs were still pliable.
Oh, okay.
But from looking at the others from a medical standpoint, the information that they pulled was information that basically would have been used to say, yes, this is a reason to stop resuscitation, because of the amount of carbon dioxide, CO2, the amount of carbon dioxide that was being forced out of their lungs each time they were compressed. So the study, I knew what they were trying to do, I understand, but that was the only study that I could see the full thing, and it just wasn't enough data. It just wasn't enough data. All 17 of the folks that they tested actually died.
Wow. So, I mean, that's unfortunate. My fingers are crossed. My hopes are that that does get proven to be adequate, because then we can quit doing breaths and we're still getting fresh oxygen into their bloodstream. Because let's face it, the breaths is what, as a trainer, that's what I see most people struggle with. They can't get the chest to rise. They can't remember to head tilt, chin lift, pinch the nose.
Yeah,
They're not
yeah,
even looking
yes.
just to see if the chest is rising. I think that's the hardest thing for them to get down, and then for the student, that's the scariest thing to do. As far as French kissing strangers. They nobody nobody wants to do that. Nobody's excited about
Especially
that.
during a pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's excited about that, even with the breathing barrier. So, if that did get proven to be adequate, I would be the first one to celebrate. It would make my job easier as a trainer. It would make people more likely to do it, and so. But yeah, I guess the jury's still out on that one.
So with that one, I really really push it for my students going through the electrical course, and for the students who first aid, the ones who take the falls, because even, I mean, no, they're not going to go through the full CPR course, but when you let them know that, you increase a person's chances of survival, cardiac arrest. You increase that person's chances of the survival 2 to 3 times if you just do something.
Right.
Even if you don't know what you're doing, pushing hard and fast on that person's chest gives them a better chance of survival than simply watching and waiting for someone to come and help.
For sure.
So
And
on the professional side, I like compressions and breaths. On the bystander side, hands only CPR, go for it.
and there is some sound logic in that if someone died, they were breathing. So, they hit the ground. There is oxygen in their blood. It's just not being circulated because the heart has stopped, cardiac arrest. So, when you do just start pumping on the chest, you are going to circulate oxygenated blood.
And there's that passive, the passive ventilation as well. I mean, it may not be much,
Right.
but at least it's something.
Yeah, yeah. And if someone who wasn't trained in full CPR, but they were just doing that, like you said, that's way better than just, waiting for the paramedics to get there.
Yes.
Have you seen any of the new technology for compressions? I saw this product. It's like a vest you could put on a victim, and it does the compressions automatically.
So I saw a monster, Lucas, and some of our paramedics were actually using it about a month ago in a demonstration. And this thing, it's there is a pad piece that goes under the back.
Okay.
It has arms that attach on fold over from the sides and over to the chest, and then a plunger in the middle.
Okay.
And when they put that person on that board and they lock this thing into place, I mean, they strap it into place, and it does the compressions, and they can do everything else. They're free to move all about that person and take care of all sorts of other problems. I was totally impressed by this thing. It's like, Lucas, okay, I like that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool, especially for like what you're saying with the paramedics. If I got to tie up a paramedic to do chest compressions that whole ride, we're not starting IVs, we're not pushing fluids and meds, we're not doing all the other things we could be doing. So that's the strenuous part anyway. That's really a physically exerting job. People don't believe me, but I have my classes stretch out. I'm like, so far I'm batting 1,000. I've had 0 injuries in a CPR class, and I don't want to have one today. So let's stretch out. And people are like, whatever, this isn't hard. And I'm like 5 cycles. of 30 compressions, that's like 150 compression. It is hard. It's like running up and down a flight of stairs. And they're like, whatever, man. I'm like, just humor me and stretch. So I stretch with them. We stretch out a little bit. But every time the video's like, all right, and now you're done, you just see the sigh of relief. Everyone's like, oh, thank God. And I was like, see, I told you. You know,
Now we were talking about the automated systems, and with the paramedics and EMTs, I think it's a lot safer for them, because if you've ever watched them in an ambulance trying to give CPR as they're rolling down the road, and there's nothing to strap them in as they're doing that.
okay, I could see that. It's a safety issue for them.
Yep, somebody slam on the brakes and they end up going into the front of the vehicle. And with the hands-only CPR, now that's the downside. Exactly what you were talking about with the stretching out, because it's going to wear you out.
Right.
I was looking at some study that because they're doing it hands only and there is no break, that the compressions start to lose their quality.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because the person's getting worn out. And we were talking about students. That's one of the things with the students, is trying to get them not to bend their elbows.
Right.
Like,
Body
your
weight.
body.
Body weight. Yeah, these big dudes, they want to use their muscle. That's what they're used to doing. And I'm like, nope, body weight, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a couple of them. I've got this. There's this one seed scientist from
a seed
not food
scientist, like SEED.
Yeah, seed.
Okay.
Yeah, she evaluates and creates seeds.
Okay, I gotcha.
And she comes in, she renews hers every year, like clockwork. But she weighs probably 85,
Oh, wow.
90 pounds. And she does great on the infant. She does great on the child. But when she's working on the adult,
Right. You got to go deeper, like at least 2 inches, right?
well, yeah. And I'd probably have to get somebody to sit on her back if she ever had to do that
Yeah.
for a full, 15 minutes until trained rescuers arrived.
Right. Speaking of the trained rescuers, one of the things that I like that paramedics have, and I actually encourage my clients to buy one for their go bags. You know, if there was a catastrophic injury on the floor on the construction site, I like them to have a duffel bag with the supplies instead of just that fixed first aid kit on the wall. You know, no one's ever going to collapse in front of that. You know, you're always going to have to go to the victim, you know? So I like them to have go bags. And one of the things I recommend them to get is those resuscitation bags, those Ambu bags like paramedics use. I bought one for $27 off Amazon. And,
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, the pros, man, they're not French kissing strangers. Pros aren't using breathing barriers. Them paramedics, they got that face mask on there, and they get a tight seal over the nose and mouth. They still do the head tilt, chin lift. But then they just squish that bag. And, man, that's just superior oxygen delivery because it never went through the rescuer's lungs to absorb just a hair of that oxygen. It's going to be, you know, that 21% oxygen that's in that room. It's going to be better oxygen delivery. There's extreme less risk for bloodborne pathogens, contraction and stuff like that. And you don't need any kind of medical license to use them or purchase them. And they're available, you know, online. So I encourage my clients to get that because it's pretty slick, man, when you just, you know, got to squeeze that bag and fill up them lungs, get that chest to rise.
So I'm now that you've said that, I have never. I mean, we train with the bag mask, but I have never recommended it to any of our lay responders and that's actually a great idea.
Well, thank you,
We've
sir.
got a couple of construction crews that come through here for their training, and their first aid kits are rucksacks,
Right.
backpacks,
Yeah.
and they've got plenty of room.
Yeah.
It's that's not a bad idea at all.
They break down pretty small, and especially with COVID too, you're not worried about getting COVID. You're not worried about, and a lot of people when they collapse, sometimes they fall face first, and so there's a lot of blood, from the fall.
Yeah,
And you're not worried about any of
Yep.
that. Yeah, you're just pumping on that mask, and it's good oxygen delivery.
Aaron, that is a really great idea.
I try to steal
I'm
some.
gonna start pushing it to all my classes. Yeah.
Well, with that being the one of the biggest fears is getting a disease and all that and the awkwardness. You take that away with the tool, right? With the better tool. With the better tool, every job's easier.
Yeah.
I want to switch to fears. So what I've noticed in real life is trained people, certified in CPR, AED, and CPR, will still not help someone that suddenly collapse at work or in public because fear dominates them. And I've narrowed it to what I call are the top 5 fears that inhibit trained responders, trained people from actually using their skills. And I wanted to bump that off another instructor to see if this has come up in any of your classes and how you deal with it. So when I ask, I'll start off with asking my class, and I ask it in a way that they're not admitting it's their fear. I say, what do you guess people's fears are for not doing it? And one of the number ones is that bloodborne pathogens. Everybody wants to save life, but nobody wants to get a disease doing it. And so that's when we segue into the breathing barriers and all that stuff and gloves. But a lot of people are afraid of being sued for doing first aid CPR. Have you come across that fear? And if so, how have you tried to get them to overcome it to still try to save a life?
So often so for us, I was actually thinking about that same thing, so I started to put together a list. And explaining to them about the Good Samaritan that every state has some sort of Good Samaritan protection. And if they were doing it in the interest of saving that person's life, and when someone can't respond, we take that response, that lack of response, as a yes.
Yeah.
So the fear of litigation, that has common, but not on the professional side,
right?
On the lay responder side, on the professional side, those who have never actually, like the ones who work at the long-term care facility.
Okay.
And their clients are basically brittle. And so they have this huge fear of doing more harm to that person.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely what I have experienced too, is after that, in addition to fear of being sued, they have the fear of hurting someone. Before we move into that one, I have to really educate people on that Good Samaritan law, because the only time they have heard of that law was on the season finale of Seinfeld.
I didn't watch the season finale of Seinfeld.
They all went to jail because they didn't help someone in need. That's how that show ended. Yeah, it was weird. And their charge was the Good Samaritan law. So in people's minds, they're like, the Good Samaritan law is to penalize me for not helping. And I'm like, no. The Good Samaritan law is to protect you for helping someone if they decided to sue you after you saved their life, because there are booger heads out there that would sink that low to do that.
Yes.
So the Good Samaritan law is to protect you. And they're like, whoa, Because I'm telling you, man, the only time they ever heard that was on Seinfeld when they got arrested for not helping someone.
Well,
So
and you're bringing up something else, and that is that not helping because I'm afraid I'm going to do it wrong, and I don't want to do it wrong, so I'm just not going to do anything.
yeah, that's one of the top 5 fears too. So let's deal with the injured one. How do you get them to overcome that? Because that's real. I mean, subluxation, dislocation, fracture of a rib on an elderly patient, an elderly victim is definitely real. It does happen. So how do you get them to still do it?
Usually I'm lucky enough. Usually I'm lucky enough to give the class here in our building, and Lindsay, right across the hall, they had to give her father-in-law
Okay.
CPR.
Wow.
And basically he complained about the pain afterwards, but he made this little thing, and she has it on her phone where he says, "But I'm still alive to complain about the pain."
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I deal with it on a couple different ways. I just tell about my personal life. You know, as a fighter, I break a rib, fracture a rib at least once a year, you know, in training or in competition, and have so since I was, 17. It's just fractured ribs is just a part of the game. And I used to just heal in a month. Now it takes me 2 months. But yeah, it sucks to breathe. It sucks to laugh. You can't run. It's an annoying pain. The doctors don't give you any meds for it anymore. They don't even give you the chest wraps for it anymore because people wouldn't breathe enough, and that would cause pneumonia. So you just got to tough it out. It's like a broken baby toe. You just got to tough it out. But what I tell them, it's an illogical fear. And, I'm trying to provoke their thought. Like, what? How dare you say my fear is illogical? I say because I say let's just play the scenario out. Okay, person who just died, who I might be able to resuscitate, I'm actually not going to give you that chance to live because I'm such a caring person. I don't want you to be in pain for a month with rib pain, so I'm just going to let you die.
Yes, I like that. That's a motivator. That is a motivator.
When you frame it like that, I do the same thing with tourniqueting. Okay, person who just severed their femoral artery and you have minutes to live. I am such a good person. I don't want you to lose your limb. So I'm not going to tourniquet you, even though I have one and know how, because I'm such a good person. I care so much about you. I'm just going to let you die. But because I'm a good person, I'm going to record you. You got any last words for your family?
Oh, my God. Yeah.
I like to frame things, and so then people go, yeah, that is stupid. That is a dumb fear. That is illogical.
Yeah.
And but man, I don't have a cool, powerful story like that, like from Lindsay's dad. That's pretty cool.
But I like yours because then I don't have to worry about getting hurt, so she can tell her father-in-law's story.
I want to sidetrack for just a second because this was such a powerful story. I had a friend in here on the show, Steve, and man, he does construction safety management. And I did not know this, and it blew me away. I thought I was intense safety guy with these stories. His daughter was actually in a tragic car accident, and she had to get a prosthetic eye. And she had a few over time, because they would get better ones and for whatever reasons. And so the old ones he would keep in this little glass jar in his pocket. And a prosthetic eyeball, a real one.
Yeah.
And when he would have a guy not wearing safety glasses on site and he would correct him and that guy would give him flack, he would bust that out and show him. It's like, this is what you want? And they would be like, whoa, dude. And I'm like, wow, how powerful is that? How powerful is that? This guy, this safety guy, he's really going the next level. He's carrying around prosthetic eyes.
Well, real life is a motivator.
Yeah.
When you can show someone the real potential behind their failures or the consequences of their failures, that's a motivator.
Yeah, I was like, wow, you go, boy. I like hearing stuff like that, like people actually care, people actually thinking outside the box and doing what it takes to get the points across. But that next fear that you brought up was doing it wrong. I've had so many people mention that in the class when I'm asking what fears people have, because they say, "Look, man, I only get this every 2 years. I don't
Yeah.
use it. If something were to happen a year and 11 months from today, I'm scared I'm not going to remember what to do." Have you had that? And if so, how did you work them through that?
You know what? I told him that in, oh my goodness, over 20 years that I've been trained, I've only had to actually do it twice.
Really?
Only twice. And I like to bring up this one video on YouTube where the monkey at the train station grabs the power line and gets electrocuted.
This
And
is
then the
a
other
real
monkey
a real monkey?
beats him, bites him, just whips up on him for about another 5 minutes and ends up resuscitating him. And I said, if a monkey can do it, you can do it.
That's a real thing?
Yeah. Yeah, it was at a train station in India. I let them bring it up on YouTube so they can see the video.
Wow, I'll have to check that one out. So a real life monkey touches a live line, gets electrocuted, must have stopped the heart or put it into ventricular fibrillation or ventricular tachycardia, something like that. And another monkey goes in there and pounds him back to life.
Yep.
Wow, yeah, that is impressive. So yeah,
search for monkey CPR.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And the way I approach it, I just tell them, man, just do something, kind of like what you were saying earlier. If you forgot 30 and 2 and you did 15 compressions and 5 breaths and then 19 compressions and 1 breath and then 32 compressions and 6 breaths, is that the perfect ratio the scientists recommend? No. But is it better than doing nothing? Yeah, 100%.
Yes,
exactly. And then they go, well, what? Yeah, and then they say, well, what if someone's watching me and they know I'm not doing it wrong? And I say, well, it depends on my mood. If I'm feeling ornery, I'm going to say, all right, doctor, you're patient. Take over, professional dude. If you're so smart, why don't you get in here and do it yourself? You were too much of a punk to step up. I stepped up. Or if I'm feeling nice and professional, I'll just be like, oh, thank you for pointing it out. Well, why don't you remind me what the correct way is? And then I'll just do it,
I'm with you. If they know how it should be done, then they should be down there with me.
Yeah, well, get in here and show me how it's done, master. Come on, man. Guru of CPR, show us little people how we do it then,
Yeah.
But some people are better with more studious students and better with memory, and some people have more bravery, and just go with it. Use the combination of someone who's a chicken but remembers and you who are brave who didn't remember. You team up, you get it done. Get it done. Get her done. I also tell people that man, if you were on your deathbed and your great grandchild was doing a documentary on you before you died, and they got to the question of what was your one regret in life, I would bet it would be that, where you were like, man, this coworker suddenly collapsed and I knew CPR, but I was too scared to do it, so I didn't do it. And I should have just tried. I would think about that all the time, how I should have just done something. I tried to hit them a little emotionally too, about it weighing on their conscience if they didn't try anything.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if that's nice or not, but, my goal is to get people to do CPR, so I'll use any means necessary. I'm not above that.
Hey, whatever it takes to motivate them.
Hey, I learned from moms. They use guilt. Why can't I?
So do you ever get the question, what if I panic?
I actually haven't got that one too much, like freezing, panic. I get that all the time in my self-defense world, like concealed weapons permit courses. What if I freeze? I get that all the time, but I haven't got it at CPR. But if I did, I would tell them what I tell my self-defense students. Everybody, when they're confronted with something sudden and intense, might go into a little bit of panic or shock or freeze for a sec, but then snap out of it and get to work, and I don't have anything better to say than that, but it's normal to maybe panic, but then dig deep and get her done. How have you addressed that?
Well, the reason I brought it up was in one of the studies where I was looking up reasons why people did not give CPR. Trained responders, trained lay responders, simply said that they panicked, and that's why they didn't do anything. And I've never had anyone ask me. I've actually gone through it before, but not with a CPR. My son dislocated his knee.
Ooh.
And I've been trained in first aid for years. So I'm in there and I am assisting him and everything's going great. I get on the phone, I call 911, and the lady asks me, "What is your location?" And I just sat there.
Right.
My son takes the phone and he gives her our address. But it's like I'm patching, I'm wrapping, I'm giving him these wonderful words to ease his mind, and it was gone. It was totally gone. I could not remember my own address.
I mean, I think it's good that you're bringing it up because, I believe, with how humanity is, that if it was their coworker, it's a little easier to detach yourself and just get the job done because you care as a human, but you don't really care. Like if this person dies at work, it's going to be sad, but it doesn't really affect your life that much. But when it's someone a friend, a family member, that panic is real. I just went through this Saturday. My 14-year-old son and my 15-year-old daughter had their first kickboxing full contact fight in a cage.
Yes.
Now, I have been coaching many fighters from every type of full contact fight. But this was my son. This was my daughter. My son was fighting a guy who had 15 pounds on him and was 17. And my son was only 14. And, man, when we got to wrapping hands in that fighter meeting, my heart I was having a little panic attack. My heart was just fluttering. And I was like, I want to quit and go home, but then I had to use logic. I was like, no, we've trained for this. He's good. I wouldn't have put him in here. I wouldn't have accepted this if he wasn't ready. We've trained so hard. He is talented. He is mentally tough. And but man, when it was my son, he fought first. It affected me more than any other fighter I've cornered my whole life. So that is real. That emotion and that panic. So I think it's good you're bringing that up. Because you could just go blank, And by the way,
I was just glad that I had my son there. I mean, that he was conscious.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have done better if he was unconscious. I wouldn't have seen that look in his eyes.
Yeah. And to finish my story, just so the audience aren't on a cliffhanger, he did lose, but he lost a split decision, and he went in there and killed it, man. He opened it up with a teep and buckled the guy. He landed clean Superman punches, knocked the guy against the cage. He landed head kicks and body kicks, and it was a split decision. They gave it to the hometown guy. So my daughter...
he did it,
My daughter went in and got
like it went well.
Yeah, my daughter went in and got a second-round TKO, man. She TKO'd the girl.
Oh.
Yeah, my daughter's a brawler, man. 15 years old, so proud dad. I got to brag a little bit. Proud dad. But
well, you should be proud.
So going back to the fears, getting the disease, I deal with that with PPE, breathing barrier gloves. Getting sued, I deal with that with Good Samaritan law. Not remembering, I deal with that with just do something. Hurting that, I deal with the logic side of it. Any other fears that, or just, that's the same as like not doing it right or hurting them or forgetting. Those kind of all bundled together. Any other weird fears you've heard?
The last thing that I've had them ask me, and it was you. I've never had a male ask. It was normally ladies. I don't think I can do this for that long.
Okay, like a physical strength issue.
Yeah,
that's a logical fear.
It's not going to let me do this more than 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, I've dealt with that with in a different way with people with wrist issues. I've had a lot of people with jacked up wrists, and it really hurts them to do the compressions. and so I get that as well, a similar issue, and what have you told them, man? Just jump and put your feet in the air and get all your body weight.
No, I explained to him. I said, "Have you ever been in one of those situations where you just got so excited that basically your thresholds went away, that you were able to do something that you thought you couldn't do,
Right.
because you were so emotionally involved?"
Right.
I said, and as much as you seem to care about other people, I have no doubt that you're going to get emotionally involved, and your emotions are going to take over your physical, and you'll be able to do what you need to do.
Yeah, and I fully believe that. Sometimes that fear and that panic is a good thing. In this case, like with adrenaline, you're probably going to be pushing way harder under all that stress than you think you're going to.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, you're not going to be feeling the normal fatigue and pain responses with adrenaline. Now you'll have adrenaline dump at some point, but yeah, when that adrenaline kicks in, you're going to get it done when someone's life is really on the line. I believe, and I tell my class, I believe you will, and I want you to, and I'm encouraging you to dig deep, because on the video, they always get confused. Well, they don't get confused, but I like to ask them, a bunch of questions after they watch a little segment. I was like, so when do you stop CPR? And the first thing they always tell me is when you get tired. Because the video says, that's what the video says, when you're too fatigued to go on. It's part of it. It lists like 5 reasons, like if they resuscitate, if the emergency medical providers get there, or if you're too tired to continue. And they're always like, so I'm like, so when do you stop doing CPR? And like, when you're too tired. I'm like, yeah, that's what the video said, but come on, guys, dig deep. Don't be like, oh, I'm a little tired, I'm just done. No, dig deep. And even if you pull the muscle, like, I never encourage anybody to get hurt except at this moment. Like, dig deep. Someone's life's on the line. Come on, just push a little harder. You'll feel better that you gave it your all until the paramedics got there. Obviously, if you feel your heart's gonna explode and you're gonna have a heart attack, then I would say, yeah, definitely stop. But if it's just a fatigue thing, come on, guys, let's dig deep.
That's one of those where you kind of wish that you were on scene, or you could at least talk to them and motivate them, because that's all it takes.
Yeah.
That's probably all it's going to take. It's like, look at that person. Do you want to be responsible for that person dying right now? And they will grab that little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Well, Mr. James, it has already been an hour, and I don't feel like it was enough, because there was so much more I wanted to get into with nuances of the automated external defibrillators and the nuances of tourniqueting and wound care and all that. There's so much in first aid, CPR, and AED. So maybe sometime in 2022 you can come back on and we can finish this one up. But as always, man, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. It was a pleasure to pick your brain, and just thanks for coming on, man.
Look, I truly appreciate you inviting me, because I enjoy this.
Cool, man.
Just the conversation is wonderful.
Yeah. Maybe one day I'll take the show on the road. We can do this in person.
All right. Just bring some more of your ideas so I can start stealing. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, for Mr. James Henderson, I'm Aaron Iacino. Together today, we are the Evil Safety Dudes. Oh, wait, James, you got to do that one with me.
Okay.
Yeah, you can pull that one. I'll just do a little pause first. So
together we are the
Evil Safety Dudes. Yeah. So we'll take 3. We'll get this. For Mr. James Henderson, I'm Aaron Iacino. Together today, we are the Evil Safety Dudes. All right, everybody. Until next time, stay safe.